Okay, welcome to the Leading and Reframing webinar. Mark, let's go. Let's take it to roll.
Good day, everyone, from AC International. This is Mark Neeb, your CEO, and today I'm with Jon Goldman, the CEO of Turning Point. I've worked with Jon for quite a few years and currently still do. And Jon has created a approach to what we're all going through right now, this crisis we feel having to do with the pandemic. And he's created an approach that I think is very useful for us and will provide us some action plans as an industry to try to respond to what's happening. Jon, you've termed the phrase negademic. Would you mind telling us what negademic means to you?
Yeah, it's the reality and our emotions. So the reality is that there is a pandemic going on. And also there's a negative information epidemic going on. You see what's happening with the stock market. It's flying up and down, and there's worry and fear and anxiety. And so really what's going on that we have to counteract is the negative thinking and the mindset that's going on behind this.
And you've created a metaphor to help guide us through this called the open vaccine solution. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So we'll get into open, what it stands for, and vaccine. It's really easy to remember and it's very actionable. So let's talk a little bit about how we got into this, why it's called a negademic, Mark. So we have a negativity bias. Right now, the media is an absolute hazard. 80% of our thoughts, according to the National Science Foundation, is actually negative. Get that? Most of our thoughts are negative. And right now, all much more so. And worse than that is 95% of them are old thinking. So the question is, how do we deal with that? It's going crazy right now. The sky is falling. The sky is falling. Oh my gosh. Remember Chicken Little? The sky is falling. And so what came along? The fox. The fox came along. And what did the fox say? The fox said, oh, no problem. Come on inside. Maybe it's Fox News. Maybe it's CNN. I don't know who it is. But it's totally inappropriate because if it bleeds, it leads. And they know if they scare us, if it bleeds, so it leads in terms of the news. And so they're totally biased. It's totally not working for us, Mark. So,
Jon, what is the media doing that changes the way we think? And how do we fix that cycle? What are the triggers that cause us to freak out when we hear the news?
Well, we're all like a horse. We're a horse and rider. We have our prefrontal cortex, which is our ability to make decisions. And we have our amygdala region, which is like a horse, which either bites or kicks or runs when it gets scared. And so the way that works psychologically is we have to understand what fires together, wires together. And every time you watch the news, Mark, or every time you click on your phone and you see another information input comes in, a neuron fires across the neural synapses. And what starts to happen, when something wasn't there, suddenly it becomes there. And now what fires together, wires together. And now you find out that the courts are shutting down. And now you find out that your workers have to work from home. And now you find out that you can't have so many people there. And now you find out that we can't travel. And now you find out that you're losing money. And now you find out that the stock market is crashing. And so what happens, it starts to wire together. And so what we see is what fires together, wires together. And what happens is all that negative thoughts fire together. And what happens is the reactions start to wire together. But here's what's so interesting about it, Mark, is that that's the negative side. And what's the positive side? You see, we also have thriving thoughts and reactions, but if you don't use it, you lose it. Right over here is an example of a thriving, healthy, positive thought. But what happens is when we spend so much time in the negative thoughts, if you don't use this, it dies. Now watch what happens over here, because the other area fires together and wires together so much and so fast that this area actually dies. So you use it or you lose it. And what's happening is that we have this alarms versus decisions. In the real world right now, people are getting hurt. They're dying. Companies are losing money. I know I lost a huge amount of money just in the last week in the stock market. That's alarms. But then we have decision making. Alarms are great for fight or flight, but it's terrible for decision making. And then we have the other thing that's driving this. It's dopamine. We love clicking on our phone and we love another news. But you know what? the dopamine rush doesn't contribute at all to the long-term goals or to growth or what's really happening. So, we got two worlds. We have two wolves, if you will. We have negative thoughts and positive thoughts and experiences. And the deal is whatever you feed grows. So if you feed the negativity, it'll grow and grow and grow. And you pass it on and more negativity. If you feed the positive, it'll grow too. If you feed the weeds, it'll grow. If you feed the flowers, it'll grow. Here's what's coming in. This is just a little word cloud from the last day. There's fear and people are losing money. You probably just lost a ton of money in the stock market.
Only on paper.
Right. But what's happening is people are worried. How many calls have you gotten about people that are actually worried what's going on right now? There's risk. There's anxiety. The stock market's crashing. There's a physical pandemic. How far we have to be across from one another. There's problems. Our business is in danger. Clients are canceling. So here's the deal, Mark. Either we author your own narrative or you'll be living in the narrative of the media. That means that they're creating a narrative that's biased and it's not healthy for us. And so where we are now is what you're talking about this.
Yeah, John, I have to admit to you that I've watched the news less in the past week. And it might seem counterintuitive, but I really just like the negativity. It's almost like traffic going past a car accident. Everybody has to slow down and get a glimpse, right? And get a look at what happened in the accident out of curiosity. I am trying to move away from that because I've learned that it's bad for me. So how do we reframe ourselves so that we don't get inundated and basically internalize all the negativity that we're seeing and hearing right now?
So, okay, good. So first of all, there's a set of rules, and the society has a set of rules that require courage to stand up against. And everyone's talking, and if everyone's talking about it, so it must be important. And if there really is a shortage on toilet paper, then I better go do it. So we have to change the rules. There's something called a Gordian knot. You know what the Gordian knot is? Someone by the name of, there was a legend that there was a hard knot that was soaked with the ocean waters and the sun, and it baked in. And they said, whoever can undo the knot will rule Macedonia. So what happened? Alexander the Great came along and he said, you know what? I'm going to have a total reframe and change the game. And he came along with a sword and whopped it in half. So we have to have the courage to change the game. And the good news here is that there's something called the rule of pain. Mark, there's a period of time that my name is Tenpa Chopil. I lived in a Buddhist monastery. I shaved my head, changed my name to Tenpa Chopil. I stopped eating for 1 week. I stopped speaking for a week. I lived blindfolded. And when we were sitting there, we learned about pain. And when you sit, pain rises and then it floats away. So pain always passes. And I don't know if this is going to pass in 3 hours or 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, but it will pass. And it's going to pass. So the only question then is, how do we deal with it when it passes? What's happening right now is they're so into this moment, they're feeling frustrated that we can't get our jobs done. We have expectations that it should be okay. They're worried, what's going to be with our future? What if? They're angry. They're angry at the president. They're angry at they're angry at the Chinese. They're angry at some guy in Wuhan. They're afraid. Many people are just one step away from going into debt, massive debt. They don't have a whole lot of savings, and they're feeling anxious. I don't know what to do. I'm feeling resentful that I have to be at home with my kids, and you're kidding me. And they're resentful of the situation, so they're feeling stuck. Right? If you're in the market right now, do not enter, do not exit. Right? And so people are feeling like, what am I supposed to do? But you know what? You are never, ever, ever stuck. I'm telling you, as leaders, this is the message that we need to be sharing. This podcast and this session is specifically for leaders to tell them, for you to tell people you're not stuck. You might not like the choices, but you're never stuck. You see, we have these expectations and they're the kiss of death, right? But we have to embrace what is. And I was wondering, maybe you can share with us a little story about how we do this and what's going on here.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, John. But first, I got to go back a couple slides. I think I'm going to take a collection up amongst ACA members to see if we can't get you to shave your head, because I'd really like to see what that looks like. It's a good look, by the way. I would like to share a short story back, and ECA members will remember this, but back when the CFPB came into existence, I'm sure many of you, like me, were kind of in the state of denial. And I think I went through all the stages, right? Denial, anger. How do I have to change my business now to appease some government bureaucracy, and on and on. I concocted all of this sky is falling attitude in my head. And one day I came to my senses and I sat down with my senior leadership staff and I said, we're done complaining. We have an opportunity here to prove to the world how solid our company is. And I actually embraced it. And I literally went to the CFPB and asked them if I could volunteer to be part of their oversight, because my company wasn't big enough and I was under the revenue threshold.
Oh my gosh.
I thought I was not. But the fact of the matter was,
you asked them to give you oversight?
I did. And the answer was, we never thought of that. Why on earth would you want to do that? And I said, because I'm proud of my company and the quality work that we do. I want everybody to know it, but especially I want the Bureau to know it. So personally, that's how I got past that period of anger and frustration. And it was really important for my organization, because I had 110 people who needed to be in the right frame of mind, because we can't focus on outcomes if you're angry and frustrated. So, that's a little bit of what, how I dealt with that.
Right. So based on that, when you and I discussed this, we have this idea called a choice card. No matter where you're at, you can always make a choice. And so this choice card is kind of, how do you coach yourself and others to thrive in a challenging situation? So even though it's hard, you're never, ever, ever stuck. And so you can always make a choice. This picture was drawn by my mentor, Dr. Cohen, in Jerusalem. He's currently in his 23rd year of Lou Gehrig's disease, and now he can't do anything except blink his eyes. But at every step along the way, he's like, I have a choice. And he emailed me not long ago and said, these are the best years of my life. And he drew this with in the book. He's got a book here that he has all these pictures that he did, Mark, with his eyes. And he said, I still have a choice. And so he did this dove with his eyes. And so the deal is like this, that E equals C. Most people think that, oh, my experience, my emotions are based on our circumstances. It's not true. It's not true. If you could think that, oh, here's a guy that can't do anything. These are the best years of his life. You had the CFPB coming after you and you said, okay, my experience doesn't have to be based on that. What is true is that our experiences and our emotions are based on our circumstances plus our thoughts. So that's what we want to reframe. And so now this is the structure of how we'll do that, Mark. Validate, activate, and communicate. Validate what's going on, activate, and communicate twice as much.
So, John, I know you've got a step process, but how can we take this? By the way, those are the first 3 letters of the word vaccine. That's not lost on me. How do we validate, activate, and communicate? And how does that apply in your open leadership model? I know you've got some detail you want to give us here.
Well, first of all, this is in a crisis time like this, we want to be able to focus on something simple. So all you have to remember is validate, activate, communicate. The vaccine, and use open. So open means this, that the first thing is to validate people. The first part of this model is understand it's all about relationships. So it's about our employees, our teams, our families, ourselves, our clients, the debtors. And so we want to validate how people are feeling. And secondarily is we want to produce an outcome. So it's OP. The outcome that we want to produce is we want to make sure that our team is safe. We want to make sure we got enough cash in the company. We want to provide for our families, and we want to produce an outcome. It is up to our leadership to provide leadership. What's the outcome, and how do we take care of our people? The other step is to envision, to create a vision of what could be, possibilities, as opposed to the final step, which is N, OPEN, which is the nuts and bolts, the very practical. So the way this works, these are on opposite ends of the spectrum. Sometimes, let's say right now, someone needs to work from home. And as they work from home, the outcome the person who's outcome focused is like, well, how are we going to cover for them? The people person is going to be like, oh my, how are you going to deal with all your kids at home? And, oh, can I cover for you? The envision person is going to think like, oh, how do we use this as an opportunity? How do you learn to delegate? The nuts and bolts person is like, okay, exactly what time do you start? How many emails you have to check? What's our compensation policy? So this 4-part model is outcome. Our job as leaders, very simple. Oh, articulate the results that we want. Provide the leadership and be direct and bold. On the opposite side, on the people side, is to validate their feelings, their fears, their anxieties, connect and communicate twice as much as you've ever done before. On the idea side, envision, create possibilities, plans, assets. What are the assets that we have? What are the opportunities that we have? Enroll your team, create a task force right now, and we'll provide a template on how to do this. But if you only focus on the negative, you'll never get to the opportunities. So what assets do we have? People, relationship, financial, internal assets. What are the possibilities we have? And then how do we create a task force to do this? And finally, provide practical action steps. What are the facts? And be objective. So these are the 4 steps that we need to be positive, though. We need to do this when we do the open model. Science tells us, based on Jon Goldman, that you have to 4-to-1, 4 positive for every 1 negative. And it's up to you, the leader, to actually create that dialogue, to create the dialogue of positive, 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 to fight fire with fire. And so the media wants to bring in the negative. It's our job to create the positive, but not Pollyannish. So we want to turn frustration into fascination. Instead of just being like, oh my gosh, it's a setback. This setback is a setup for a comeback. Instead of saying, okay, our workers can't come in today, how fascinating. You know what I mean, Mark? How fascinating.
This is the true test for us, John. I know I've heard you say and ask that question, how fascinating, many, many times, including recently at a committee of 100. And I have to tell you, this current pandemic situation may be the toughest example I've ever seen in my life of how to turn something into fascination from frustration. And I think one of the ways to do it, I played a lot of baseball in my life, and you go to the plate and you always want to hit a home run. But the fact is, we need to hit singles. We need small wins. So can you tell us a little bit about how collection agencies can get small wins through this current situation?
Sure. The first part of small wins is to understand that, to embrace what is. Just like you embraced the CFPB, the main thing is not to be scared, not to scare yourself, and know that you can handle your feelings, you can handle your experiences. So if you want to have small wins, because we don't know what the future is going to hand. So first of all, focus on just embracing what is. And know that it's okay not to know. Teach your tongue to say, I don't know, but here's what I do know, and give them a plan. And as you said, it's too big. And so what does this mean? It's too big. So we want to break it into small wins. And this is what we call a small wins bell, right? And this is Dan Russell. If you just celebrate finally after everything is said and done, you'll never build any momentum. This is Dan who's the CEO of CCI. He has a small wins coach shirt on, so that you can focus on small wins. And if you do that, then you can celebrate along the way. And so the way we'll do small wins is you'll create an action plan with the task force. And it's very simple. In 90 minutes, you can do this. 90 minutes, you focus on the outcome. Focus on, number 1, what is the short-term and long-term goals and plans? Number 2, how do we focus on our people? Validate what they're feeling, communicate to them in a way that they want to be communicated. Number 3, what are the nuts and bolts? What are the issues and the facts on the ground? Let's deal with them. And how do we then prioritize the plan? And then envision what are assets and what are the opportunities? So we want to look at what could be, and then we communicate the plan. So in this open model, it's very simple, and it moves into a plan like this, where we'll make available, because right here, right now, things are moving fast, and you and I are moving as fast as we can to make this available. So this task force action plan talks about your goals. For example, you have to maintain sustainability and cash flow. You have to be able to nurture, lead, and protect your team. That's the goal. The facts are you're losing revenues right now. Your team has to work from home. Things are changing. What are assets and opportunities? So this is a template that you can use to then prioritize your plan and then create an action plan. And the final thing, Mark, is the now is the how. You want to know how to do it? Focus on the now. That's what we know is the now is the how. And so let's wrap up with some next steps. The deal is like this, is that so you can get all these tools simply by texting 410-874-4800 and text the word thrive. And here's the 4 things that you'll get. Number 1, Mark, you said that we needed to create an action plan. So the action plan is a template that you can use online. It's free, and you can do it through Asana, or you can download it and put it into another format. So number 2 is we're writing, and almost done with it, it'll be done by the weekend, the ACA Leader's Guide, how to manage through the crisis. But in the meantime, we'll give you a copy of this presentation so you can share it immediately. And then maybe you can talk about number 4, Mark.
Yeah, happy to, John. Next week, Tuesday the 24th at 2 p.m. Central Time, John is going to present a longer version of today's short talk. I hope you'll sign up and attend. You can go out on ACA's website to do that. John, you know, one of the mantras at ACA International is our job is to help members succeed. And this 20-minute vignette as a precursor to what you're going to present next week, I think goes a long way to show our members how much we're thinking about you. What are my personal concerns right now? Certainly ACA staff and making sure we're all of the right mind to be continuing to serve your needs through this crisis. And number 2, how to help you lead your companies through this crisis, because we're going to come out the other end stronger than we entered it. And I hope you'll join us next week for that. So John, I want to thank you for joining us today. I've known you for years. You never disappoint. Thank you so much for sharing the information you did. And ACA members, please jump out on the website and get signed up for the presentation next week. And we'll see you then. In the meantime, take care, everybody. Stay safe and be of good health.
Thanks, Mark. Text the number and get all the stuff for now. And I look forward to seeing you. Thank you, Mark, for your courage and your leadership. Talk to you later.